to the Unleash Success podcast, where we break down the secrets of success to give you real tools and strategies that get real results. And now, here's your host, Corey Corpodian.
Welcome back to Unleash Success. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter yet, just go to unleashsuccess.com, enter your email so you can get all the tools and strategies sent directly to you each and every week. Welcome back to Unleash Success. This is your host, Corey Corpodian. Today we are interviewing Tracy Litt, who is a certified mindset coach, best-selling author, a rapid transformational therapist, and the founder of the Litt Factor, which is a personal growth and coaching company. If Brené Brown and Tony Robbins had a baby, that baby would be Tracy. And so I am super excited to interview you, Tracy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Okay, so I saw that on your website, you know, the whole Brené Brown and Tony Robbins had a baby, that would be you. That is one, funny and great. And also, what a crazy combination. And you've been doing some speaking and you started your company, the Litt Factor. I wanted to know, what inspired you to get into this transformational therapy?
So what inspired me to really get into this business, and it's the same thing that now inspires me to wake up every day and serve and connect to people, was seeing how many people don't understand how powerful they are, right? Witnessing and watching other human beings not understanding the power of choice. And, you know, what I teach on is our inner power, our personal inner power. And each one of us have this within us. It's not like half the population got it and the other half didn't. It's dormant in us until we learn how to access it. So for me, I was sitting in, you know, corporate America, much like many stories of people that come into the personal growth space. And I could have stayed there forever and it would have been, quote, fine, but my soul was dying. And ultimately, I didn't want to get to the end of my life and not have gone after why I'm really here. Right? Like what I have been put here to wake people up, to remind you what you're capable of, to teach you how to think so that you can feel, be, do, have, and create what you want, and to show you what it looks like to actually honor your worth and love yourself. So I, jumped in. It took me 2 years. I played with fear for 2 years. And then ultimately, here I am, and the company is 3 years old and we're thriving and serving students and clients over 7 countries. And I couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's funny how you do get to that point where things are just comfortable and, you could keep on going. And at some point you say to yourself, though, is this really going to fulfill me? Am I going to live my life? Or am I just going to be kind of like a robot and go through the motions of life and at the end, wonder, was this really worth it? So I like what you said too. It's not something that you end up doing, always in a moment. You might have made a change, but at the same time, it took 2 years to really commit to it because there's that fear factor that comes in. And for you, how did you manage to get over that fear?
I'm so glad you asked me that because I love this topic. Once we really understand what fear is and how to love it and use it, it actually becomes a support to our highest selves, right? And ultimately, it was through me realizing, okay, the reason why I'm not taking action, the reason, I had picked the coaching school I wanted, I had talked to the admissions department. And I sat on saying yes for 2 years because of the voices in my head. And I know that our listeners will relate. Will this work? Will it won't work? Will people like me? Will they not? Is this too much of a risk? Am I going to succeed? Am I going to fail? Right? All of that kind of stuff that goes on. And ultimately, while I sat in that, I started growing. I started learning. I started getting curious, like, what is this voice in my head? And where is all of this doubt and risk aversion coming from? And ultimately, I started learning about fear in a whole new way. And through learning about it and going, okay, Trace, so
ultimately, me wanting to do something I've never done before, go from a corporate job with consistency and a paycheck, right, into going after what I believe I was born to do and become an entrepreneur. That was me going from the familiar into the unfamiliar. And what I learned was, as soon as you not even do the thing, but think about doing the thing, I started to tripwire my fear response. And my fear response is what was creating those the self-doubt reel that was going on in my head. All of those inner voices trying to get me to stop. So once I understood fear for what it actually is, I was able to love it and use it to propel me into what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that. I just recorded an episode for our Mental Monday little motivational session, just 5 to 10 minutes, about the negative self-talk that we all go through. And I think the funny thing, though, is that people kind of expect that not to happen, but it does creep up when you're trying to get out of your comfort zone. And for me, at least, like what you said, it's the ability to take that fear and use it to help you accomplish your goal and propel you forward.
Absolutely. And realizing that when the voice in your head is not supporting what you're saying you want to go do, that tells you right then and there, that's fear, that's ego. That is not you, that is not your dreams, that is not your higher self, that is not your soul. That is your mind using fear to keep you from moving forward. So when we can recognize that, oh, that's what that negative self-talk is about in those instances, then you can shift your self-talk. And instead, you can become what I call like the president of your own fan club, right? And start to root yourself on, so that you can drop yourself into feeling how you need to feel to go take the action you say you want to take.
Yeah, it is really tough. It's like a lot of people say they want something, yet their actions or inaction don't align with that. You talk a lot about going into creating this inner power that you have and understanding the power of choice. How do you foster an environment where people create that alignment within themselves that they actually do what they say they're going to do?
Well, the first thing is, do you really want what you say you want? Right? Which I think is something we don't ask enough. Do you want it because your parents told you to be it? Do you want it because your best friend's doing it? Do you want it because that's what the Keeping Up with the Joneses is, or that's the cultural collective thinking definition of success? Because if you don't really want it for your own deep soul reasons, for your own alignment to your fullest expression of yourself, you'll never do what you need to do to get it.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable how often in my own life, I didn't realize that I was self-sabotaging, that I had this internal conflict that was keeping me from getting what I thought I wanted. But it did start with getting clear on what you actually want. That's a really big point.
Yeah, it is. And then ultimately realizing and just making the choice to adopt the belief that everything is a choice, right? Really shining the light on absolutely everything in your life comes out of choices that you've made or haven't made. And when you start to empower yourself with that truth, then you can take a look at, okay, so my reality is always a direct match for what I believe, what I think, where I place my focus and attention, the language that I use, and how I honor myself. Right? And then you can dig in and almost reverse engineer, then go, okay, what belief do I need to shift? Where do I need to change my language? What new behaviors do I need to create so that I can shift that reality? But ultimately, it's about getting everyone to live from a space of what I teach as radical personal responsibility.
What do you mean by that? Yeah.
Radical personal responsibility means no more excuses, no more reasons, no more justifying. Don't give me your laundry list of rationalizations as to why you aren't where you say you want to be. When I say you have all the power, I really do mean you have all the power and you always have. You don't need to wait on anything or anyone outside of you for you to start to do the things that you need to do to get yourself to where you want to go. And if you aren't willing, it's basically owning your shit. If you aren't willing to, then you're going to create a lot of resistance and congestion for yourself, and you're ultimately making it a lot more challenging.
So somebody comes to you and they say, you know what, Tracy, that's great, but I've got bills to pay. I've got responsibility. I've got this stopping me, or I don't have maybe the degree that I should have, or I don't have the experience. What do you say to them when they've got all these excuses. And these excuses might even be actually true. But what do you say to them then?
How bad do you want it?
Right.
Really, how bad do you want it? And I think the flip side question to that that's even better is, how good can you take it? Because what happens is we're so used to living in certain thresholds and in certain emotional states and emotional habits, whether it's chaos or stress or victim or negativity or why your life is so hard, that you're just consistently living into the same story over and over again. And what's really happening is you are afraid of how good it can be. Right? It's like, let me just keep myself justified and small and in this space that's super familiar to me because, oh my God, how good can it get? And then that tripwires that fear response I was talking about earlier, because it's not, if life that is easy and abundant and free flowing and peaceful and fulfilling seems really foreign to you, your body and your mind is not going to be interested in you achieving it, even though that sounds kind of crazy, because who doesn't want to feel better? Who doesn't want to be at peace and ease and abundant and rocking it and feeling great? But if that's not what's familiar to you, then you're going to tripwire your fear response, because in that moment, your fear is just going, well, this isn't familiar. It must mean imminent death. Let's keep him or her away from that. And that's really where all of the excuses and justifications. We just like to justify our limits. We like to say, this is why I am where I am, and just sit in our shit. And if you're doing that, then you're not taking radical responsibility. In which case, really, my approach becomes, then stop asking for more if you're not willing to do the work. You don't get to have it both ways, right? We can't say, I want more and I want different, but let me sit over here and tell you all the reasons why it's never going to change.
I hate that. I hate when people go, like, say I want something and go, I could never do that. I'm like, why? Like, what do you mean you can't do that? What do you mean you want something? Like, if you really want it, just go fucking work for it. Like, it's not always that hard. I think the thing is, especially as entrepreneurs in this digital age, where we see all these people massively being successful, I think people really underestimate the amount of time and effort it takes to truly become that successful person that people envision, and see on Instagram, flying on private planes. I mean, that is crazy. Like, flying a private plane and doing that all the time and owning a private plane is millions of dollars. It takes so much time. And like, they have this vision of success. Like, I want that, but I could never get it. Well, yes, you could. But that guy spent 25 years. That girl, she spent her entire life working to become the best at what they do. And I think people, I think they just underestimate what it takes and aren't willing, like you said, to put in the work.
Well, yeah. And it's so interesting. I was just having this conversation. It's also, we have this warped perception of everything. So we look at the overnight success, but don't realize it took 17 years or the overnight success that took 23 years. It's really realizing, because also we as online entrepreneurs, some of it, we do a disservice to the community that we're in, because you can't say it's 10 steps to 7 figures. That's bullshit. You can't say you never have to work. And listen, I'm a fan of shifting our cultural paradigm out of busy and into space. I don't think the hustle is right. I do think it'll kill you. However, there's no world where you don't have to get up and be intentional and work, do the work, not sit back and make a vision board. And I love vision boards too, but take action, do the thing so that you can move the ball down the field, so that you can ultimately actualize what you keep talking about, right? It's like getting people out of the wishing and the hoping and the wanting and the praying, which is all useless if you don't get off your ass and do it.
Absolutely.
Right? And getting people into a much more action-oriented place. That's also when the universe co-collaborates too, right? It's like, okay, when I make a move, then an opportunity comes my way. When I make another move, there comes another possibility. That's how we really co-create.
100%. And, you talk about taking action, and I love that, because one of the things that I talk about a lot on this podcast is the 80-20 rule. And the way I use it is, 80% of our results come from 20% of our actions. The key is knowing which actions to take so that we, can get that massive result faster. When you're working with entrepreneurs or you yourself are trying to create a shift in your own life, what do you believe is some of the best actions you've taken to get that next level?
Oh, this is so good. So number one, action, which you can't do anything without, but the other, like no gray area, most important thing is internal alignment. And here's what I mean by that. We must work on our self-image as entrepreneurs, as any human being, but you asked an entrepreneurial question. Do you see yourself as someone who is speaking on stages of 5,000? Can you actually see it? Can you feel it in your body? Or are you like, oh, no, right? And there's so much resistance and there's so many disempowering beliefs. Do you see yourself with a huge empire company that's bringing in 7 figures annually, right? We have to dig in and do the work on ourselves, because what I believe about entrepreneurship is it's actually a personal growth journey, and you can't out-entrepreneur, for lack of a better word, how much growth you've done, right? So your beliefs will creep up on you. The wounds that you haven't healed will show up. The way you see the world is a direct, reflection of what's happening in your business. So the other key way to hit success, and this is how I have done what I've done, and the Litt Factor turned 3 in September, so like just a couple months ago. And in this window of time, I mean, it's been incredible. I now have hundreds of students over 7 countries and a best-selling book, and I speak a lot, and it just keeps expanding. And every time I hit a new level, I had to dig in and do my own work, right? My mindset work. And whoa, Trey, that's interesting that you don't think that's possible. You say you want it. So you have to be able to create internal congruence with what it is the vision is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you talk about the hustle and being an entrepreneur. Where do you see, as far as like, that's incredible growth for you? Over the last couple of years, hundreds of people. How have you been able to balance your work life and, as an entrepreneur, it's like almost like you're working 120 hours a week sometimes, and your personal life?
Well, I actually don't believe in work-life balance. I actually don't think it's a thing. I'll share my perspective on that because it's really important, and especially for women, because we were just brought up culturally in different ways, right, than dudes were. But for work-life balance, it just becomes another thing to achieve. It's just another added pressure. It's like, oh, and on top of all this, I need to have balance. How do I create balance? What does that even look like? So it ends up being a real mindfuck. What I believe in and what's been sustainable for me, and I have 3 teenage daughters and a husband who I love to spend time with, and great friends and family, right, and this thriving, expanding business, is I choose to be present where I am, right? So full presence, immersion presence. I don't multitask. I don't talk to my kids while I'm trying to send an email, right? I'm not hanging out with my husband while I'm trying to correspond with somebody on Facebook. Be where you are. Because then, number one, the productivity and the engagement of your brain is going to be so much more enhanced. You're going to get so much more out of the moments that you put towards it. And then you're looking at life through the lens of quality, not quantity. So if I'm with my daughters for an hour and a half, and it is an hour and a half where we are all in and no one's on their phones and we are just loving on each other and present, then that's satiating, right? And now we feel connected. And I can actually go back and I could do work for 3 or 4 hours. It's not about making it an hour here and an hour there and creating balance. It's about presence in whatever you're doing at the time.
Absolutely. I love that too, because, somebody said is that you don't multitask. And I'm actually a really big fan of monotasking, where literally I'm just doing one task at a time, because you build that momentum, you get in the groove, you're fully present, and you're more effective and productive. And if I'm quote unquote monotasking by spending time with my girlfriend or family or anything like that, at that time I feel like I'm actually getting the quality time that you're talking about. I love that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what we're here for. I mean, everything we're doing, the impact we want, this is about connection to ourselves, connection to the people we're in intimate relationships with, connections to our clients and our students. So honor yourself by being present and honor them.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you too, you've grown to like several hundred clients, 7 countries. That's super, super impressive. I was wondering, what did you do to grow so quickly in the last 3 years?
I showed up. And I know that sounds super simple, and of course I'll expand, but I showed up. I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about how scary it was. I didn't give in to giving a shit what people thought about me. I decided this is who I am. I am super comfortable with my skin. I work all of my own work. I don't give a tool or a talk or anything that I haven't tried on myself or, a student or client of mine. And I was visible, right? I let people know, hi, I'm Tracy. Here's who I am. This is what I stand for. I curse on my lives. I don't give a shit. If you love it, great. If you don't, great. Either way, awesome. I don't mind being polarizing. I love to share my opinions because when I put my head on the pillow at night, I feel so good about me being myself. And that created a massive, massive growth for me because when you show up, number one, just show up because so many people struggle, and I see this all the time. Visibility, speaking your mind, using your voice, saying what it really is you want to say, not what you think you should say so that people will like you or that you'll get a client. I know my work isn't really about me. As long as I can show up in my full expression of myself, and then I can share and serve and deliver what really comes out like sermons when I do Facebook Lives, then boom, right? Those people that need me are going to be like flies to honey. You guys, when you are talking about how do you grow, expand, reach, impact, stop asking how and just show up. And the fact that, we live in the day of the internet, that's what creates all the countries, right? Because if I'm doing a great Facebook Live where I'm just jamming out and sharing my thoughts and tools and this and that and client stories and la, 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 and I'm doing my thing, and I usually also dance and sing and whatever else I feel like doing. And before you know it, you're hanging out with someone in Ireland and someone in Australia. You didn't do anything. You just showed up. That's the key.
I mean, absolutely. It's a lot of times we know what action we need to take, but we're scared of doing it and we talk ourselves out of doing it. And that's why, like you said, just showing up and doing the work, you're going to actually expand. And so you were saying that, with Facebook Lives, has that been a big proponent to your growth?
Massive. I actually just started on Instagram like 8 months ago. Everybody's like Instagram. And, so I finally came around and it's lovely. But most of my business was grown through Facebook.
Specifically just doing Facebook Lives, or were you doing advertisements?
Yeah, no, I did do my first round of advertising. Last year was the first time I'd ever done a paid ad. And that was great. And, I definitely connected me with a lot of people. But it connected me with the same amount of people that doing consistent Facebook Lives did. Just showing up and being consistent about it. And then someone would go, oh, you got to follow her. You got to hang out with her. And it just became this beautiful organic growth where, I also don't really pay attention to the numbers, which is something that some of my business coaches and stuff are like, what? Pay attention to the numbers. I'm like, you know what? That's going to happen. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to show up. I know I have a lot to give. I am phenomenal at what I do. And I'm going to show up and I'm going to be me and I'm going to serve. And the rest of it's none of my business. And it's worked beautifully.
How do you create that sense of self-confidence? I mean, clearly you're very, very confident in your own beliefs and what you have to be able to give to the world. How did you build that up? Were you always this self-confident?
Not in all things. My iteration of not enough, because, one of the reasons I'm here, everybody, is to eradicate the great lie of unworthiness, because it's just bullshit. You are enough. You always have been. You always will be. Things in your life that happened to you in instances and what you were told and what you witnessed growing up might have led you to believe that your worth was negotiable, but it's not. But mine growing up was I'm not smart enough. And I really, truly believed that until I did the deep work. That's actually why I became a rapid transformational hypnotherapist, because I was a recipient of the method and it changed my life. So I, of course, was like, I need to do that. So I went back to school again and learned how to do that. So It's something that I worked on in myself. I took a look at, what is my self-image? How do I see myself? Where am I not accepting myself? What's my self-talk like in certain instances? And this is really the work I do with people. Peeling back what's blocking you. Peeling back what your pile of shoulds are, right? That you've been trying to navigate your life around, that's taking you further and further away from who you really are, not who the people that raised you need you to be, et cetera, et cetera. And through the course of doing that work and reworking my own belief system, like actually doing the work, you guys, like every morning, realizing, whoa, I'm not going to get to be where I want to be. I'm not going to be able to be the girl with the dream with this really disempowering belief system I'm currently working with, right? I can't be that girl with this disempowering set of habits that I'm currently executing on. So I took a look at, what did I need to change and what do I need to believe? And once I started really doing that, and when you think of you as really none of your business, when you start to release that, that's a massive piece. How people respond to you is not your responsibility. And that the sole opinion that matters in your life is your own. And before you seek outside validation, the only real validation and approval you need is yours. Game changing. Now you're able to step up, and that's where your confidence is bred from, because you're no longer making decisions contingent on being liked or waiting for the outside nods going, yeah, you got this, you're doing a good job. You can just like unabashedly and unapologetically just show up the way you did when you were like around 6 years old, 5 years old, before the self-judgment part of your brain started kicking in, and just be who you are.
You are so like in your own element, like just being able to be so confident. It really is impressive to listen to you speak. And I'm just wondering, was there like something that happened, or like, you know, when you said you were in corporate America, you were working and it was just like, all right, I'm slowly dying inside. Was there, you know, were you also this excited about life? Or like, I'm wondering what happened in your mind that caused that switch where you're like, you know what, enough's enough?
So a couple things, and I'll share a quote with you in a minute, because it's actually the quote that changed my life. But, you know, I've always been a very happy person. You know, I've always been the go-to advice giver. I was always the connector. You know, I love to talk to people. And the other thing that was really part of my upbringing was understanding that I could choose. My mother was a spiritual counselor in the later years of her life. And I learned to, even though I was, you know, in like my young 20s, upper teens, and I pretended I didn't give a shit, right? And, you know, like when you're a punky kid, oh, whatever, but I was absorbing it all. Mm-hmm. And ultimately had a lot of triumphs in my life. In losing my mother, she was 51, I was 24. Oh. Then I became a single mother to my daughter was 8 months old, and I was a single mother at 28. Like, that's definitely not something you intend. And it was like in those types of examples, I realized I have choice, right? Which is also what makes me passionate about teaching this work. You are not a victim of circumstance unless you decide you are. And in every moment, you can choose what you're going to say and how you're going to respond and what move you're going to make next, so that you can create a future self that's really, really happy. So in that moment where I was on the floor in my garage, my 8-month-old crying her eyes out in her crib, and here I am like, whoa, Trey, this is not what we thought life was going to look like. And I'm like, you know, fetal position, snot bubble, crying on the floor in the garage, because I couldn't stand to listen to her cry anymore. And let the feelings out, which is another thing we get to learn how to do, feel our feelings, super important. And then stood up and wiped the tears away and said, okay, you're going to dig in. What was going on in you that created this outcome? Because you're the root cause of everything you experience. I learned that from my mother. And you have the power of choice. So you can either be a victim to this circumstance and just allow this external circumstance create your life, which would have been a very low-looking trajectory, or you can get up and you can decide what kind of epic life you want to create for you and this gorgeous little girl in there, and you can be the warrior and choose your way into what you want. And that's what I did. And that's why I teach choice, Because don't tell me that you are powerless. Unless you want to be powerless, in which case it goes back to the top of our talk, which was then stop talking about it, right? If you're not willing to shift and make the changes, then you don't get allowed to bitch and complain and beat yourself up over it.
Right.
You don't. That's just not how the game is played. But if you're ready and you know that something has to give, and you know, because we all have that calling, we are destined to do more than we're doing. And that doesn't mean like even serve millions. That's not the point. It could simply be break the genetic habit of chronic stress and overwhelm and become someone who loves ease. Like it could be total emotionally based. It doesn't have to be like climbing Machu Picchu or something. Whatever it is you want, you can have it, because you actually can't feel it and conceptualize it if it's not available for you.
You know, I'm just thinking, somebody who's listening to this and, you know, they're struggling to make that choice, and they go, you know, for you, it's so easy, but for me, it's not that easy. What do you think are some mistakes that people make when they're going through this process that stops them from actually making the choice that they really want?
Not clearing out some of the shit that makes them think they don't deserve happiness first. We have to clear out the stuff that keeps stopping you from making the choices that are going to help you feel better. There's so many things that I hear about, well, you know, but if I'm happy, then the shoe's going to drop, right? Or I don't really deserve happiness, where we are constantly, until we do this work, by the way, guys, like the inner work, healing your wounds, learning how to think, assessing and taking an audit on your current belief system, how you became who you are, which you could, all of it's in my book, by the way, and the practical tools. For you to really be able to dig in and do the work, then you can start to allow yourself to feel better, right? And start to see yourself as someone who XYZ, whatever it is that you're saying you're wanting. Because if we don't do that work, then we're constantly going to, I call it protect down, like you use the word sabotage. Sabotage is really protection, because what we're doing is we're protecting ourselves to stay in the familiar threshold, if you will, that we're used to. So if you're somebody who was raised in a lot of chaos and your parents were divorced and they fought about money and you constantly felt like you weren't seen and you weren't heard, and then you try to show up and create your business without healing and moving through some of that shit I just said, then you'll never be able to do it. And you'll feel like it's impossible. You'll say to me, oh yeah, well, it's easy for you, right? But you have to be able to clean out some of the shit in your suitcase, like meaning the suitcase we all carry around our entire lives. And we just keep carrying it. And we don't know if what's inside of it is helpful or hurtful, but we have to go through it. You got to do the deep dive. And then realizing that choice is choice, like you guys, choice. The definition of choice is you get to choose. It is an option. Right? So stop choosing what's keeping you where you are. Because so many things when I started becoming a human potential obsessive junkie were the kind of things where I would figure it out and I just wanted to stand in a neon suit with a megaphone on the tallest building and scream it to everyone, right? Like, you are not fixed. You can change. And the most profound thing is, as soon as you make a new choice, you get a new result like that.
I think what's interesting too.
Try it on.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about choice is sometimes people don't realize that they're choosing to stay the same, or they're choosing not to pursue the goal. Like, inaction is a choice.
Amen. Amen. That's why literally everything is a choice. There is no gray. You can't come to me and say, well, this isn't a choice. Yeah, it is. Everything is a choice, even what you tolerate and allow. It's just like a kinder way to fake yourself out as if you're not choosing it.
So I wanted to ask you too, what kind of tools? You said some of it's in your book. Obviously, we can create a link in the show notes for your book. But is there any other tools that people might be able to use, or exercises that really enhance this inner work and self-awareness?
Oh, yes. I will share my favorite one that I tattooed on myself. I love it so much.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay. This is interesting.
On my inner left wrist, it says breathe. Because we don't do it right. And it's actually the gateway to all the things you guys want to do. Because here's the one spot where, where we might be right in how do you make a new choice, or I can't make a new choice. Well, yeah, if you don't slow down and create more self-awareness and create space, then you won't be able to make a new choice because you're running around like a zombie in default mode, not being aware of yourself. You can't change what you don't notice. And in order to notice things, we have to create an exponentially greater level of self-awareness. So when you breathe, you are doing such a service to yourself because essentially we don't breathe right. We were born breathing far deeper and more calmly, and then life happens and we start to breathe in a really erratic, shallow ways. Sometimes you'll even realize that you don't breathe at all. Something goes on, you hold your breath. And that's terrible for you because you're depriving your system of oxygen. You're creating more stress in your mind and body when you're not breathing. Versus when you stop and you go, okay, wait a second. Like right now, let's just take a deep breath together, and everybody can too. You just drop in a little bit more. So when you learn how to breathe on purpose and you set alarms on your phone, use technology for good, not just to distract you from life, and pause and do 3 rounds of deep breathing. You can do a traditional box breathing, a flagpole, I call it, 4 count in, 4 count hold, 4 count out, 4 count at the bottom. Do 3 rounds of that 5 times a day. Your life will change because you're becoming aware.
I love the breathing exercises, and even just doing that deep breath and just taking a deep breath. It centers you. It feels relaxed and almost focused. And so I hope everybody else experienced that too and took the time to actually consciously breathe. It is a very powerful tool, and I absolutely love that. I think it's so cool that you tattooed it on your wrist, just a friendly reminder every time you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. And what I love about it also is that it's free.
Right.
And it's always on you. So I don't care where you're listening from or whatever. Like, there's no excuse. It's free and it's always on you. You can't call us up and go, hey, guys, I left it in my other suitcase. You didn't. It's on you. Use it. It is the most important thing we can do for any change we want to make, and quite frankly, just to feel better, just to create the connection to ourselves, right? To be able to start to trust ourselves again, to be able to hear our deeper truths, to connect to the higher self that we all also have. But they're so ignored and drowned out by the busyness and the chaos and the stress and the constant striving and listening to what other people think and all the bullshit that's keeping you low. Just breathe. Connect to yourself. It's the biggest thing you can do to change your life.
I absolutely love that, and that is just great advice, Tracy. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask, where can we find you online?
You can find me everywhere under the Litt Factor, and it's Litt with 2 T's, so it's the Litt, Litt, Factor. And that's my website, and those are all my social handles, LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and you can find me in any of those places.
And if we wanted to get your book?
You can go directly to Amazon, and it's also available on Audible, and I did the audio. Yay! So you can listen to me love you and yell at you simultaneously, because that's what I'm good at. Because I believe in you, and I see in you what you can't currently see for yourself, and I am going to make sure that you remember that you're 1 in 400 trillion, right? And inspire you to start acting accordingly. So you can go to Amazon, just search Worthy Human. Subtitle is Because You Are the Problem and the Solution. And you can get it in Kindle, paperback, or audio.
Thank you. That sounds awesome. Definitely excited to listen to your voice yelling and loving.
It is. I've been called the loving smack in the face you didn't know you needed. Which I was like, yes, I will take that.
That's great. So, Tracy, for you, you've achieved a lot of success over the last several years, and you're impacting people's lives. But for you, what is your next level of success?
It's exactly what I'm doing, but doing it more. So more impact. My mission is to awaken 1 million people to their personal power. So it will be feeling how I'm feeling, because one of the ways I measure success is my own happiness. right? It's inside me, not outside me. So if I can keep feeling amazing each and every day, I will have hit my next level of success and having the impact of millions of lives so that each one of you can feel this way and do the work for yourselves because you have inside you everything you need. That's next level for me.
That's amazing. Tracy, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
If you enjoyed the show and learned something of value, the one ask that I have is please go subscribe, whether you're on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. And if you leave us a 5-star rating and review, that absolutely helps us get our message out there. Each week, I'm going to continue to interview amazing people, and we're going to break down their tools and strategies to help get you real results. Feel free to visit the website, unleashsuccess.com, and subscribe to our newsletter so you get updates each week. And remember, knowing is not enough. Knowledge alone is not power. Action is. Because action is the only way you're going to get the results you want in life and truly live the life of your dreams. So take some action, subscribe to the podcast today, and get ready to unleash success in you.